When daylight broke on another freezing day, the tower was deserted once more. The colony of bats circled one last time before the creeping sun sent them back to their eaves. But in the icy wasteland between the road and the tower, the wild dogs, the huanggo, were prowling curiously, sniffing at something alongside a ditch. It was the body of a young woman, lying at an odd angle and covered by a layer of frost. Her clothing was disheveled, her body badly mutilated. On her wrist was an expensive watch that had stopped just after midnight. It was the morning after the Russian Christmas, 13 days after the Western Christmas by the old Julian calendar. Peking at that time had a population of some 1.5 million, of which only 2,000, perhaps 3, were foreigners. They were a disparate group, ranging from stiff-backed consuls and their diplomatic staff to destitute White Russians. The latter, having fled their homeland to escape the Bolsheviks and revolution, were now officially stateless. In between were journalists, a few businessmen, some old China hands who'd lived in Peking since the days of the Qing dynasty and felt they could never leave. There was the odd world traveler taking a prolonged sojourn from a grand tour of the Orient, who'd come for a fortnight and lingered on for years, as well as refugees from the Great Depression in Europe and America, seeking opportunity and adventure. And there was no shortage of foreign criminals, dope fiends, and prostitutes who'd somehow washed up in northern China. Peking's foreigners clustered in and around a small enclave known as the Legation Quarter, where the great powers of Europe, America, and Japan had their embassies and consulates, institutions that were always referred to as legations. Just 2 square acres in size, the strictly demarcated legation quarter was guarded by imposing gates and armed sentries, with signs ordering rickshaw pullers to slow down for inspection as they passed through. Inside was a haven of Western architecture, commerce, and entertainment, a profusion of clubs, hotels, and bars that could just as easily have been in London, Paris, or Washington. Both the Chinese and foreigners of Peking had been living with chaos and uncertainty for a long time. Ever since the downfall of the Qing dynasty in 1911, the city had been at the mercy of one marauding warlord after another. Nominally, China was ruled by the Kuomintang, or Nationalist Party, under the leadership of Chiang Kai-shek. But the government competed for power with the warlords and their private armies, who controlled swaths of territory as large as Western Europe. Peking and most of northern China was a region in flux. Between 1916 and 1928 alone, no fewer than 7 warlord rulers came and went in Peking. On conquering the city, each sought to outdo the last, with more elaborate uniforms, more ermine and braid. All fancied themselves emperors, founders of new dynasties, and all commanded substantial private armies. One of them, Cao Kun, had bribed his way to supremacy, paying officials large amounts in stolen silver dollars, since no official in China at that time trusted paper money. Another, Feng Kuo-chang, had been a violin player in brothels before illegally declaring himself president of all China. They and their ilk terrorized the city as they bled it dry. Peking was certainly a prize. It was China's richest city after Shanghai and Tianjin. Unlike those two, however, Peking was not a treaty port, those places seized from the Qing dynasty by European powers in the 19th century. There, foreigners governed themselves and built trading empires backed by their own police forces, armies, and navies. Peking was, at least for now, Chinese territory. But it was no longer the capital, and had not been since 1927. In that year, Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek, unable to pacify the northern warlords and struggling to cement his fragile leadership of the Kuomintang, had moved the seat of government to Nanking, some 700 miles south. From there, he launched the Northern Expedition, a military campaign that attempted to wipe out both the warlords and the nascent but troublesome Communist Party and unite China under his rule. He was only partially successful. Peking was run by the Hope Chahar Political Council, led by General Sung Che-yuan, commander of the Kuomintang's 29th Route Army. General Sung, who had a formidable reputation for soldiering,